Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon to everybody, and I would like to welcome you to the talk show, which is My Story Talk Show. And I want to take a few minutes to just acknowledge our CEO and host of the My Story Talk Show, Lady Michelle L. Forbes. She's in the background today, taking care of all of the technical issues. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for allowing me or for blessing me to be the guest host today. And we have an awesome story this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, you listen, go to Facebook and go to My Story Talk Show and share it out to all of your friends and let them know that we have an awesome guest speaker on today. And of course, in keeping with the Mother's Day theme and honoring mothers throughout May, because Mother's Day is not just a one day thing, it's an everyday thing. But we are taking the entire month of May to acknowledge all mothers. So go on over to Facebook to the My Story Talk Show and go ahead and share the live out. Call up your enemies, call up your friends, call everybody up and tell them that we have an amazing show on today. Listen, all of the shows are amazing. Today we have a very special guest, my friend. Her name is Stansel Roberts. And Stansel and I have been friends for the better part of, I want to say, almost 40 years. But before I introduce her, before I bring her on, I'm just gonna read quickly her lengthy bio. Anyway, listen. Stansel Roberts is a professional in the financial field and works with the government of Antigua and Barbuda. And we are live here in Antigua and Barbuda today. Hot Antigua. She's an Antiguan by birth and proudly represents her country whenever called upon to do so. Mrs. Roberts is the Public Relations Officer for Clergy, Wives, and Widows Association of Antigua and Barbuda. She enjoys working with young people to produce radio programs on a Catholic radio station in her country, our country of Antigua. She has conducted various confirmation retreats with the young people of both the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. Her passion is conducting motivational workshops and retreats that will both empower and assist individuals to attain the well thought out destiny that God has ordained for them. Mrs. Roberts holds a bachelor's of science degree in management and a master's degree in business management. She has recently been appointed as board of a chair church school and accepted the position to ensure that Christian education continues to be a central part of young people's lives. Mrs. Roberts is the author of An Antiguan Girl's Inspiration from Above, which is an inspirational book, and her most recent book, Get Up, an inspiring and encouraging book of commands, which was written during the pandemic. She is married to Father Christopher Roberts. He's an Anglican priest. And the couple enjoys conducting couples and family retreats as they continue to work in the vineyard of the Lord. So, Stansel, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the My Story Talk Show because, and Michelle L. Forbes, Lady Michelle L. Forbes, are dragging you back into this one here again. Thank you so much for listening to the Lord and following his instructions and inspiration for having the My Story Talk Show because, as your motto so clearly states, your story is the key that can unlock someone else's prison. And so today, Stanza, we have you here today to talk about your story. You as I said, I've known you for the better part of 40 years. We met when we were about 12 or 13 years old in secondary school, Christ the King High School. And we just gelled like that.
We did.
And you have been through so much, Stansel. As I said, we're still honoring mothers. And Stansel, I don't really want to give the story away, but spoiler alert, Stansel has given birth to 3 children. However, she has no children. And I don't really want to start tearing up again. But Stanza, let me give you the opportunity to take it away. Let's talk. Let's talk about the lost. And take it away, Stanza. Take it away.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chrys-Ann, and it's really a pleasure to be here to share my story with you. As you were speaking, I sat and I said to myself, "Oh dear, is that me?" And I also thought about it, and I said, as well. Chrys-Ann and I, we have gone way back.
Hmm.
And being here this afternoon on this program, I am thinking that God is just so awesome. Many years ago, when we became friends, that first day of secondary school, when we started Christ the King, um, I never envisioned that this would be us going live, doing a talk show right now.
Yeah.
But I thank God for the opportunity of being here. Um, to begin with, and you would have said it, that you're honoring mothers. And the topic, that we're looking at today is surviving the loss of motherhood. And it is a topic that when I think about it, I said to myself, huh, that's really you surviving motherhood. And just to begin my story, as little girls growing up, we always have this fairy tale of growing up, getting married, meeting your prince charming, having your children, living in a nice picket fence house. And so that's just the way we would see life. Unfortunately for me, though, I did get married. Our first child born lived a few days, and then he died. After going through that loss, it really was a hard time for us. Got pregnant a second time about 3 years after. During the pregnancy, everything was going fine because the first pregnancy, everything was perfect pregnancy. Sometimes I look back and I said it was too perfect. Second time, got pregnant again, and during the pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. So that was it. Baby number two was lost again. And God had it that yes, there was a third time, and again, we had that loss. So we had strike one, we had strike two, and we had strike three. It was a very difficult time because, as I would have said, as a young girl, you think of growing up and having your children. I always loved children. Our house was always filled with children because my grandmother was the type of person that individuals around the neighborhood would, whenever they had a baby, they would come to my grandmother's house for her to say a prayer over the baby. Because in the Caribbean, we had that type of respect for the elder, and so babies were always in our home, always. So I grew up with this passion of wanting to have babies, and but I had the first loss, the second loss, and the third loss. It was not easy for me, and when I reflect on it, I realize that there are times that I would have sat and I would have said, Lord, why me? Why would something like this happen to someone like me? And, there are times when persons would say to you, do not question God. But, Kristen, I
Hmm.
think, and I have experienced that God wants us to have that dialogue with Him. So,
Yes.
yes, I did question God. I did ask God why. I did get angry. I did, I would reflect and I say, I have done everything that I should have. I prayed. I was always this person who tried to do the right thing, but yet it happened. And as I sit here, I can recall after, I think it was the second miscarriage, I was having all those questions, those doubts. And I remember a friend saying to me, she and I were talking, and she said, there is a nun that I would ask you to speak to. I can ask her to speak to you. And so I went and I visited her. And when I went that day to speak to Sister, um, one of the things that I always remembered is I felt like I was going through this awful time. And I said to Sister, persons are saying to me, don't question God, don't ask God why. It's His will, this is what He wants. And she and I had a candid discussion because that very week, Sister had lost her 18-year-old niece. She said to me, Stansel, you and I are at a point where we can ask God these questions. Why? Why me? And it was a situation where her niece went to sleep. They hadn't heard anything from her for a few hours. And when they went and checked, she was dead. And so, I'm saying that I had these losses. I reflect and I say, God, I lost motherhood. But when I reflect, there are times when I feel like God is saying to me, you may have lost children, but I can allow you to be a mother to others.
Wow.
And
Stansel, I and I am praying that I don't start tearing up again, because I remember that day when you lost your son. I
hmm
remembered it as vividly as it happened yesterday.
hmm
And I saw pictures of him.
hmm
Such a beautiful baby.
hmm
Stansel, let me tell you, as we say, you're a strong woman, but as we say in the Caribbean, you're chang. Because meaning for international
hmm
guests, the Caribbean slang chang means really, really, really strong, really strong.
hmm
And you know, I'm going back to that time, Stanza. I remember that 20 years ago, when I was pregnant with my second daughter, my husband and my friends, well, namely you and Colette and all those other girls. Shout out to Colette and Stacy.
Oh
Um,
yes.
they helped my husband plan a baby shower for me.
I remember it like it was
At
yesterday.
the baby shower, and the
hmm
first thing that came to me was like, when I saw you walk into the room, I was like, my God, how is Stanton going to take this?
hmm
Because we're coming like almost hot off the heels of
hmm
her losing her first child. I don't recall if you had lost the second child at that point,
hmm
but I remember that looking at you while everybody was having fun, our good friend Colette was sitting in a corner with you, comforting you, while everybody else was laughing and chatting and having fun. And Stanton,
hmm
I say you're strong because that could not have been easy for you to attend a baby shower for me. I want to thank you so much for being that friend, for, even overlooking your feelings, your sadness, your grief, and still supporting me at that baby shower. But Santa, the question really is, you lost the first one. If that had happened, if that were me, I don't know that I would have gone back for the second one. But you
Yes.
lost the second one. And if that were me, I don't know that Chris would have gone back for the third one. But I just really want to emphasize and let everybody see the strength of a woman, the strong woman, that woman of strength, who you are. And if you could just let us know what went through your mind when you found out that you were pregnant the second time and that you were pregnant the third time. And I remember at one point our friends were even saying, listen, the second stanza, find out she pregnant again, right? She better get on a plane
I remember.
United States, where
Yeah.
healthcare, where they have really, really good healthcare. But Stanza, talk to us about how you felt getting pregnant the second time, getting pregnant the third time. What were your emotions like?
hmm Well, to be honest with you, very nervous, very tentative, um, wanted to ensure I was doing everything. I wanted to, I'll tell you, I so wanted to make sure everything was going fine that I had two doctors. Um, but when I reflect on the situation, I know that I did everything that
Yes.
I should have or that I could do. And you said earlier that I am strong. I'm not going to take the credit for the strength. I am going to give credit to where credit should be given. God gave me the strength to handle it because I recall the first having lost my first child. My cousin called me and he said, I don't know what to say to you, but what I can say to you is that you're strong. And he also said something that stuck with me. He said, God gives situation to persons who he know can handle it. And I think that statement really helped me, because when I would feel when I was pregnant the second time, and I would feel very nervous, very afraid, not knowing what if. I really, honestly, though, did not think it was going to happen a second time.
Mhm.
I It happened the first time, and what are the chances that something that happened to you the first time is going to happen to you a second time? So I honestly didn't think it was going to happen. So when the real concern and fear for me came was the third pregnancy. I was really afraid, but still I said, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. And so when it did happen again the third time, um, as much as I said, Lord, it's not my will, it's your will to be done, I was angry. Um, and when we're going through grief, we get to that stage where there's so much anger. I was angry. I was angry at God. I was angry that it happened again. But what I was able to do, Chris-Ann, is to allow myself to be drawn into God. And you and I would have spoken sometime last week, and something that came to mind when I was asked to do this program. There are times when God placed certain persons in your life for a reason. When I had my third miscarriage, I can recall the night being in the hospital, and there was a nurse. I never met her again. I would love to meet her again just to thank her. And she and I were talking, and she said to me, um, she wanted to get an understanding of what happened. And I said to her, I don't know. I said to her, I got up the morning, I was lying down in my bed, and I began to pray. And as I was praying, a song came to mind, and I remember getting up, getting the songbook, and I started to sing the song. And the song is, Freely, freely you have received, freely, freely give. Go in my name, and because you believe, others will know that I live.
Wow.
And I said to her, I sang the song and I was crying, but I don't know why I was crying. And I was singing, I was praying, I was crying. And she said to me, God was giving you an opportunity to say goodbye to the baby. And I thought about it that night. And those words comforted me,
Wow.
because I was able to say to myself, you know what? This thing happened. But unlike some other persons who would have had a miscarriage and it just happened like that, I had an opportunity to say goodbye to this fetus that I was carrying. And so, it brought a level of comfort to me. And so, based on you asking me how I felt, um, I just want to step off into coping with the losses, because it was not an easy thing for me, but I was able to cope because of the persons that surrounded me. I
Yes.
have to say here, and I thank God, I have an awesome husband who
Yes.
stood by me throughout all of this, and supportive. It wasn't just me going through this, it was us going through this. I had family members, I had extended families, I had friends like you, Chris-Ann, who made sure Stansel was okay, who would just come and sit with me. I remember having a cousin, and at that time, she was cousin Roma. She was maybe in her 70s. And I remember her coming and sitting with me every day for about a week. And one day she said something to me. She sat down and she started to cry. And this is a cousin who had many children. And she said to me, I know exactly how or what you're feeling. because I have been there. And I never realized she had a miscarriage. Um, there's so many persons I have met since that would say to me, I know what you're feeling because that happened to me. And so I want to emphasize here that yes, there's a loss of motherhood for those of us who do not have children because we lost our children, but there are ways to cope with it. And so, in telling my story, I want to ensure that any person who is within the sound of my voice, who may have experienced a miscarriage, you may have lost your child. I want to say to you, surround yourself with persons who will support you. Surround yourself with persons who will help to uplift you. Surround yourself with persons who will allow you to see that, yes, you may have had losses, you may not have children, but God has a purpose for you. And so sometimes we don't know what this purpose is. And so I want to encourage persons to give your answer, um, give you give your problems to God and allow Him to give you the strength. Because that's exactly what He did for me, Chrys-Ann. He was able to strengthen me so that I can be sitting here and talking to you, because I have known of persons, I've heard of stories of persons who may have lost one child. They're in the mental home. Um, they just can't cope. And when I look at my life, I say, Lord, thank you. I say, Lord, you have a purpose for me still being here. And so I can't just continue my life just wallowing in what could have been, but I have to step forward into the purpose that God has for me.
And in terms of God giving you the strength, we also see that God not just gave you the spiritual strength, but he also gave you this physical strength in the form of your supporters, the people who were rallying around you. And before I get to my next point, Stansel, I just want to shout out to the persons who are with us here online. We have Kawana Hanley Saunders. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have, hey, Kisma, Panthea, Jean Pierre. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys can go ahead and share the live for us so we can have more persons joining us so we can hear, they can be blessed by Stansel's story. But getting back to your story, Stansel, one of the things that I personally think that you are more than qualified to speak to persons who have gone through losses, who have gone through the loss of children, and not just miscarriages, but also um, persons who have birthed their children and they have lost them in some way, shape, or form. You more than qualified to speak on that because number one, you birthed your first child by C-section, and I remember when that happened.
Oh,
I said
yes.
to myself, Lord, Stansel went through all of that, a C-section, and still doesn't have her son. But
Mhm.
not only with the other miscarriages, you didn't miscarry at early stages with those other two.
Mhm.
You miscarried, I think, at 6 months. Is that correct with the second
That's
one?
right.
And
That's
with
right.
the third one, I'm not too sure if it was 4 or 5 months. But you
5.
miscarried these 5 months
Mhm.
there. You miscarried these children at late stages in the pregnancy. So I want you to just speak on that a little for persons who have gone through that. If you could just give them some encouragement on that front and that end as well.
Okay. One of the things I would say to persons who and who would have experienced miscarriages, loss of children, share your story. And this is why I am here to share my story. And I'm passionate about sharing my story to try to help others, because I can remember one day having a conversation with my husband. And one of the things he would have said, and this happened after I was able to speak to a young lady who, she was just not doing well after losing her child. And Someone asked me to speak to her, and when I told her my story, she said, "Oh dear, and I am reacting like this, having lost one." She said, "I would not look at you and know that that happened to you." And what I was able to get from that, with the discussion I had with my husband afterwards, he said, there are times when we have to be the wounded healer.
Wow.
And when he said it, it struck me. And I said, indeed, we have to try and be the wounded healer, because there are persons who go through certain things in life and think, this is it. I can't make it. I will not survive. But being this wounded healer, you're sharing your story to show the person that, listen, I may have gone through the tunnel of darkness, but I came out on the other side. And so, coming out on the other side, I just want to share something that I jot down here, where it's saying here, accept what has happened and allow God to take full control of the future. And this is what I have done, Chris-Ann. And God and I have this back and forth conversation, because recently I would have said to you that I got a call to take up chair of a school. And I smiled and I said, God, children again, you know? And to me, when I thought about it, I said to myself, okay, it may not be biological, but he's now putting you in full control of a number of children. It must be for a reason. It is obvious that he sees some sort of quality, or he sees something that you can bring, you can share with these children. And so, to persons, I would like you to know as well, what fuel me to show the strength that Christians speak of is prayer. Prayer. When I was a little girl, my grandmother had a friend, and every time she would come to the house, her name was Miss George. Miss George would say, prayer changes things, prayer changes things. And you're just a little girl saying, this woman now is saying prayer changes things. How prayer can change things? And as I grew, and now that I am an adult, Chris-Ann, I mimic exactly what she said.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer changes things. And as I was preparing for this as well, I found myself writing this, and it said, let prayer become your fuel for the journey of life. Let prayer become the fuel for the journey of life. And, as mothers, with or without children, being a mother figure to other children, teach them to pray as well, because prayer is the only thing that's going to take us through. It's the only thing that's going to help us. It's what I use to cope with what I have been through. Prayer.
Stansel, you are impacting quite a few people on this live right now, and we just want to say hello to Jala. Thank you so much for joining us, Jala, here in Antigua. There's Jacinta Dash, there's Kay Rowe, Sherry-Ann, Verlin, Amina Richards, and the comments are coming in. Verlin, Amina Richards, she says, "No, that's strength. Amazing. Thanks for sharing." And we have Codna Irish. Oh, Codna, how you doing? She says, "Truly the Lord has given you the strength to go through. He has a plan and purpose for your life." And Codna would really know, because she's actually Stansel's answer. She's one of the people who the
Yes.
Lord has used to strengthen Stansel and to give her some raw support.
Yes.
Shout out to you, Codna Irish. And
Yes.
Kiss My Panthea Jean Pierre, she says, "Be the wounded healer." She says, "This is profound." So, Stansel, your story does matter. Everybody on here, your story does matter. But Stansel, I wanted you to shift. You spoke about the loss. You spoke about
Mhm.
coping with the losses, and we can't say loss because it's losses.
Losses.
And it wasn't just you going through this alone. We tend to have a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy for the mother who has lost children or who has lost a child, but we cannot forget the spouses, the fathers, the people who fathered these children, because after all, the mothers,
Mhm.
it wasn't an immaculate conception. But share with
Yes.
us a little about, and this is if Father Christopher does not mind, Father Roberts doesn't mind, but if you could just share with us a little with how he coped as well and how you both coped as a couple. Because we can't forget the men tend to hide their emotions and be the
Mhm.
solid rock, the supports that
Mhm.
the women need. However, they've got feelings too. They have emotions as well. And for him going through that, it could not have been easy. So just share with us a little with how Christopher handled it as well and how he was able to cope.
Well, as you would have said it, I think sometimes we take it for granted that the woman carries a child, the woman has lost a child. But we must remember the fathers. And Christopher, a rock of support. Um, I say to persons all of the time, when you're grieving and you're grieving with someone, it makes it a little easier. It was hard for both of us, but one of the things I want to say here is, and I have to step on prayer again here, because when I was a little girl, my grandmother's prayer was always, and it's something that I wrote in one of my book. My grandmother's prayer was always for me to be, as she would pray and say, God help my granddaughters to find godly men. And that's an indication for me right away that prayer worked. Because when I met Christopher, and Christopher is now a priest, and she knew he wanted to be a priest even before she died. And having someone who loves God with you going through what you're going through makes it even easier. And so, yes, it was hard for both of us. It was hard for him as well. But we were able to give each other the support that was needed. And so we were able to, pray about it. We were able to discuss it. So it wasn't a situation that I was going through this and not be able to speak to him about it. We were both able to speak about it. To it was a loss. It was a loss for us. We were grieving. So we went through the entire process together. And this is why I would have said earlier that persons must ensure that you try to surround yourself with persons who will support you. So it was a difficult situation for us both, but with the help of God, with prayer, with family, with our church family, and everything, we were able to get through the difficulties.
And
Um,
so,
as a,
oh,
a,
I'm sorry, go
as a
ahead.
matter
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, as a matter of fact, I think God has just thrown into our lives nephews and nieces who have filled that void. I know sometimes we would have this joke where we would say to them, listen, if our children were here, and I remember one of my nephews saying, well, they're not, so we're here. So it's turning it over to God and allowing him to fill that space, that void. And that's what we were able to do. Not walk around and feel like, okay, my child did not survive, so I am not going to have anything to do with other children. No, it's opening your heart to other children and saying to God, okay, that's your will. This is what you wanted, but I can now be this person for other children.
That is really deep, Stansel. And Jamina Hughes, we just want to welcome her. She says, grateful for this sharing opportunity, strengthening indeed. Thank you both. And Verlin Amina Richards says, she says, supporting. Oh dear, did I lose her? Yeah, she says support system is very important. Oh, we have Sonia Francis Mackenzie.
Hi,
Hey, Sonia.
Sonia.
She says, so powerful. Thank you for sharing, Stansel. A wounded healer indeed. Amen. And then one of your support systems, Stansel. I didn't realize that this was Kim, but Kim says,
Hi,
I,
Kim.
Yeah, Kim is actually Stansel's cousin. She says, I
Cousin.
just want Stansel to know that she and her husband did not experience her loss alone, but we mourned in private, so we can be
Yes.
strong in person for her.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for that. And
Yes.
Stansel, if you could give, let's be real, it's not everybody who's most likely listening and who's most likely watching um, would would have had the support system that you would have had.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could speak to somebody or some mother, some father um, who has gone through the loss of a child, who does not have that support system in terms of family and friends or even the church, because not everybody is a believer, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who is not there yet spiritually, however, in their camp, or if they have a camp at all, it's just, a bunch of negative, a lot of negativity stirring forward, going back and forth. What sort of advice would you give to that person or those people?
Chrys-Ann, what I would say to that person or persons is this: don't be afraid to dialogue with God. Because one of the things that happened for me when I began to dialogue with God is that it drew me closer to God. I would also like to say, God will then give you strength to recover. So if it's a situation where uh, the spouse isn't there to give the support, or you may not have this family support, start with speaking to God. It may sound like, okay, I'm just speaking to God, but I tell you, God will place someone with a word. There was a timely word for me when I was going through my first loss. Um, and I say this because for our first child, and I have to big up my family here, extended family, both Christopher's extended family and mine as well, because that child was going to be spoiled. And I have to big up as well my former workplace, because where I worked at the time, I was working at a radio station at the time, and they had already sat and they had names for the baby. So I already had that full support system around me. But what happened after with the loss, even though I had the support system, there were times when I was at my lowest. I can recall one day in particular. I got up the morning and I would just lie down in bed. I just didn't want to move. I had the room dark. I was just wallowing in pity. And I was lying in bed one morning and just crying and crying and crying. And I was staying at my grandmother's when my husband went to work. And my grandmother, I just heard the door push. And she came in and she looked at me and she said, "Listen." And my grandmother never shouted at me. But Granny walked in that room and she said, "Listen, let me tell you something, right? You're my granddaughter and I love you. And you're not going to lie down here and wallow yourself in pity and pain, because God is going to be angry with you." She said, "A baby died and you can't do anything about it. So get over it." Chrys-Ann, when Granny turned and walked out the door, I bawl, I cried. And I got up and I said to myself, "Listen, I am not staying here. I don't know what it cost me. I am not staying around somebody who's so angry with me." And I got up and I started to take out some clothes. I said, "I am going to find somewhere to go. I'm not staying here." And I remember getting dressed. I put on my clothes, and it was the first day I drove since coming out of the hospital. And I drove to town and I never forgot it. I never forget it. When I got to town, I said, "Where you come town for?" Because I just wanted to be out of there. Then I remembered I was watching TBN. And when I was watching TBN, a book was being advertised. I never forget it. The King's Daughter by Hagee's wife.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I go into the bookstore. This is what I come town for. I just want to come out of the house. So I walked into the bookstore, and when I walked in, the lady looked up so excited. Hi, how are you? What baby you had?
Oh,
I stood at the door and I started to cry. She said, did I say something wrong? And I explained to her what happened. I didn't get the book and I went back home. But what that did for me that day, with the harshness of my grandmother, was reality was knocked into me that I survived and for a purpose. And I am saying all of this story to say to the person out there who don't have the support group, once you begin to pray, God will send somebody with a word to direct you, to send you somewhere, to put you in a space that will begin to take you down the path that He has ordained for you. So don't feel like this is it. My life will never be the same again. No. Pray and ask God for direction. Ask God for guidance, and He will send it. He sent it that day with my grandmother and the woman in the store, because leaving there angry and going there and hearing that, reality knocked into me.
and so you see, not all support comes as tender love and tender loving care.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes tough love, it takes tough love to
Mm-hmm.
knock us out of, what should I say, off of our self-pity rocking chair. And don't get me wrong, we do grieving, you have to go through the process. You
Mm-hmm.
must go through the process of grieving, but it's very important to know that you cannot allow the spirit of grief to consume you, to get on you. And I'm really
Yes.
happy. God
Yes.
bless Granny, God rest her soul. That, and
Yes.
you know what, Stansel, if it didn't come from Granny, I believe God would have sent somebody else to,
He would have. He would
to
have.
rough
And
you up,
he would have.
and it,
And something, Chris-Ann, I don't mean to cut you here, but as you speak there and I'm listening, some of our toughest love comes from God. You know why? Because there are times we pray for certain things and God says no.
yeah.
And we see it as being angry and being upset. But one of the things that I keep saying to myself is, God made me, God wants the best for me.
Mhm.
So if He's saying no at this time, it's because He knows that His yes would probably take me down a path that He doesn't want me to go. So let's be at peace with this. We have to be at peace with where we are in life. We have to be at peace, Christian, because unless you reach to the point of being at peace and accepting where you are, you can't go any further.
And let's, and with that, on that note, Stanton, let's talk about we spoke about the loss, coping with the losses, and let's talk about you finding peace, you finding your peace. Because at some point, it has got to come to that. If it does not come to you finding peace in that situation, you will remain bitter, upset, angry, and all of these different domino effects will come into play. Suicidal thoughts, and you just treating people horribly. So let's talk about you finding your peace. Oh, Teresa White, she says, "Great evening, everyone. I'm so late, but I'm still here." And you know what, Teresa, you can always replay the video. So thank you so much
True.
for joining us. As late as you are, you have not missed out. And so, Stansel, talk to us about you finding your peace and how others can find their peace as well, because it's an integral part of
Mhm,
um of the healing process.
mhm. I think finding peace has to do with when you finally accept this is what God wants, this is where God wants me. And I think I have found, and I won't say I think we have found our peace
Oh my gosh,
in
Stanza.
this
We need to
situation.
welcome Daniel. Daniel.
Hi,
Daniel. Hey,
Daniel.
thanks for joining. Sorry, Stanza. Go right ahead.
It's good to have our classmates,
Our
Chris-Ann.
classmate. Yes.
You know, I am saying we have to. you have to reach to a point in your life where you say, I am at peace with where God has taken me. And I say, I am at peace. And you know what brought me peace? When I began speaking to women who would have had losses, and I see how their lives begin to evolve. I can recall one time speaking to a young lady, and she said to me, how do you do it? How do you cope? How is it you and your husband just seem not to just dwell on it? And I said to her, you have to realize that everything is not for you. What is for you, God will place in your life, and you have to accept it. Life may not always go the way you want it to, but He has a reason for it. And when I got to the point where I accepted peace, God did something that was so miraculous. I was able then to write books. And so that's where I found my peace. Being able to share my story, being able to share areas of my life that can help others. And to anyone listening to me, it's gonna take a while because it took me a while. Chrys-Ann would have said at the start of the show, she spoke about 20 something years ago, and just recently we were talking about it, and we are saying, wow, our son would have been 22 years old. So it takes time. It's a process. You're not going to get over the pain in a month or two or a year or two. Chrys-Ann, it took me a while before we could sit and talk about this. Before I'd break into tears, I'd cry. I would be inconsolable. But God gave me peace. He gave me peace with the situation to the point where I can sit here now and tell my story. I can recall sharing my story many years ago in a room. I went to a retreat in the US, and it was a room filled with over 200 women. And when I stood up and said my story, and I looked around the room, I was trying to figure out, Lord, what is happening here? Everybody was crying. Everybody was crying. My friends sitting around the table next to me, they were crying as well. And, I said, why are y'all crying? They said, from your story. And that's when I realized that God gives you the strength to share your story to help others. And I'm thankful, Chrys-Ann, to be here to share my story to help, even if it's just one person, as we had the discussion earlier. Even if it's just one young woman that I can reach out to and say to her, this is not the end. Um, don't see that God don't want you to be a mother. Maybe God wants you to be a teacher. Maybe God wants you to be a counselor. Maybe God wants you to be a youth leader where you can interact with more children and not just one child. So it's making peace with the situation.
And one of the things that I have learned from a coach of mine, I remember she was one person who gave me a lot of tough love. She always said to me, why are you asking God why He allowed this to happen? Why you? She says, can I tell you this, Chrys-Ann? It's none of your business. Mind your business. Stay in your lane. It's none of your business. And I know it sounds harsh, but we need to trust God on that level where we understand that He's in control. Once we have given Him our lives, we have to
Mhm.
understand that yes, the pain is excruciating, and you, as a human being, you're going to get upset with God. You're going to get upset. You're going to ask why still. But at the same time, the answer is if He wants us to know, He will let us know. Outside
Mhm.
of that, we have to understand that He knows what He is doing. And as you share your story, Stanza, we just want to ask everybody to go ahead to Facebook if you're not on Facebook already. But go ahead, like the My Story Talk Show Facebook page. Also go to YouTube and like and subscribe, and also Instagram, My Story Talk Show. Stansel, we have a few minutes to wrap up. And you said Michelle, listen, I gotta bring you back into this because yeah, and I'm gonna keep on saying this, Michelle, like a stock record. If young people understand what that means, Michelle, the My Story talk show. Going back to your motto again, your story is the key that can unlock someone else's prison. And Stanso, you are doing such a thing, unlocking, helping persons to use your story to unlock their prison, using your story as a key to unlock their prison. You spoke about authorship. You have written 2 books. Talk to us about those 2 books.
Okay. Just before I go to that, Kristen, I want to share something that was really telling for me today. I attended church with Christopher at 6 a.m. this morning because there's a 6 a.m. and there's a 8 a.m. And I just want to share the quote for the week because there are 2 things that impacted me at church today. And this is the quote for the week. It says, God does not comfort us to make us comfortable, but to make us comforters.
Wow.
And this was penned by John Henry Jowett. And when I heard this morning, it was so profound. And I'll repeat it. It says, God does not comfort us to make us comfortable, but to make us comforters. And I'm hoping that we are being comforters to persons this afternoon. Now, into my books, because I'm still very excited about my books. This is my first book, and it's an island girl inspiration from above. And it's an inspirational book where I would have touched on a few of the situations that I've been through in life. And I was able to speak about how God was able to help me through. And what I like about this book is that the end of each of this story, I share an area where I would speak about the lesson that I learned from the particular situation. And then I thought about it and said, you know what? I want to ensure that the readers of this book share what they would have learned from the story that I shared. And so this book is available on Amazon. For those of you in Antigua, it's available at Best of Books, and it's also available at the Methodist bookstore. And then my second book, which has me extremely excited, is Get Up.
Get up. Get
Get
up.
Up. And you know that I'm so excited about this book because I was writing another book when I wrote this book. I haven't completed the other book as yet, but it's like God said to me, get up. And so I had to get up. And I'm very happy about this book because this book was written during the pandemic. It was also written during a time when I was studying. I was studying, we were going through a pandemic, we were on lockdown. There I was doing my master's and UE. And we know when UE give you assignments, what those are. UE is not stress in a bad way, stress in a good way, because
It's
at the
not
end of
easy.
it,
Let's just say it's not easy.
it's not easy. So I was going through all of that, and I remember getting up one morning and saying, "Oh dear, we're on lockdown, internet issues, everything was just not going right." And as I was lying in bed, I heard a voice say, "Get up." I say, "Get up." I am so stressed I can't get up, and the voice said, "Get up." So I got up. I found myself walking. I went to my drawer, took out my exercise clothes, and then the voice said, "Go for a walk." So I got up, it was 5 a.m., and I went for a walk. And as I was walking, I said to myself, listen, I got up out of my bed. I already so stressed, and now I'm walking, it's going to rain. And when I looked, I said, oh Lord, it's going to rain. I don't have an umbrella. But anyway, I kept walking. And as I kept walking, and I looked way up into the sky, I saw a crack of the clouds, and between the clouds, I saw the sun. And I said, is it going to rain or is it not going to rain, Lord? Anyway, I kept walking. And as I looked, I, and it's, I'm not going to say a voice. The Holy Spirit said to me, That's life. It seems as if it's cloudy. It seems as if it's going to rain. But if you look far in beyond the clouds, you're going to see sunshine. And then I heard a voice say to me, keep shining. And I kept walking and I walked for a few miles. And when I came back, it did not rain. But what happened was I took up a book, I sat down, and I began to write. And every day I would get up, I would go for a walk, and when I returned home, I would find myself writing something. And I tell you, the first thing that I wrote in this book, and so I have it on the first page, and this is what I penned on the morning when I returned from the walk. It says, the atmospheric condition exists for you to soar as high as an eagle. However, it can only be done with the directives from God. He can control the wind pattern that will take you to your place of purpose.
Wow.
I got so excited with that every day I got up and I wrote, and I am still surprised that I was able to write a book in 3 months. In 3 months, this book was completed. And I have to say, it wasn't my strength, it was the strength of God. And I thank God for the obedience that He laid upon my heart so I could complete this book. So, this is my second book. It's Get Up. And as you can see, she got up. She got up and she's stretching because she is up. And so this book too is available on Amazon.com, and it's also available here in Antigua at Best of Books and Methodist Bookstore.
Stansel, I have yet to get my copy of Get Up. I do have a copy of the first one, but I'm definitely getting my copy of Get Up. Stansel, your story is amazing. And as Michelle said, and Michelle, I'm bringing you back in here again, your story today, Stansel, is definitely the key that has unlocked someone else's prison. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Stanton, for taking time out of your busy schedule, for joining us. And you have not only just joined us, but you have blessed us tremendously. Thank you so much for being a part of My Story talk show. And I want to believe that Michelle's going to have you back again. I think she's going to have you back, have you back again. And thank you so much for being a part of this, Stanton. God bless you and keep you. And so before we go off to some announcements, I just want to say hello to Esther J. Thomas. She's in the house, and we're going to be sharing some announcements as well that Esther is a part of. So, Stansel, God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We really, really do appreciate you.
Thank
So,
you,
ladies,
Chris-Ann. Thank you. Just in closing, I like to be obedient to the Spirit, so I'll just share these words. And it says, and this is from the homily of Father Christopher Roberts this morning. And it says, humility brings about love. Divine action take us to where we are to go, to be disciples of God. God did not come to make us comfortable. So
mhm.
reach out and touch all lives through love so that we can demonstrate that we are disciples of God.
Oh, wow, that is so beautiful, Stansel. And Jacinta Dash says, your story is truly very graciously touching. Thank you
Hi,
so very
Jacinta.
much. Thank you so very much for sharing this with us. And God
Thank
bless us.
you.
Stansel, again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those closing words again. And we would really, I know Michelle would really love to have you back on the show, sometime in the very near future. Thank you so much. So with that, we just want to go into some announcements quickly. We have a health, wellness, and fitness coach, Anesta Nisbet, and of course, our very own lady, Michelle L. Forbes. They will be doing this summer beach body moms. And listen, I had a look at this flyer. Guys, it's only $160 for 1 month supply of Epic Experience capsules, which is a diet supplement, and also 1 month supply of B keto sticks. And here is the thing. Anesta Nisbet is also going to be supplying you with 1 month's workout. It's 3 days a week. Guys, listen to me. I pay in excess of 300 to 400 US dollars for a personal training and also gym membership. And that don't even include my supplements, my protein shakes, and all of this. But for 1 month, 160 US dollars with not only organic natural supplements in weight loss products as well, but you also get Lady Anesta Nisbet. She is a health and wellness fitness coach to assist you with working out 3 days a week. And that is the Summer Beach Body Moms. Listen, we have a lot of work to do for the Lord, and we got to be healthy to do it. So join them. Get in touch with Michelle, get in touch with Anesta Nesbitt, and they will be able to assist you with how you can go about being a part of that program. Also coming up, we have Ascend the Send Kids and Esther J. Thomas. That's the lovely lady in the blue that we see there in the denim suit. She is going to be hosting her book launch and Caribbean tour. And I am so blessed to be a part of it. And Esther J. Thomas, thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you. Ascend is taking off in St. Kitts. So if you are in St. Kitts and also Nevis, Ascend is going to be taking place on June 30th in St. Kitts. And right after that, the very next day, it's going to be in Nevis. We're also coming to you in Antigua. And stay tuned because Ascend is going to be island hopping from island to island to island. St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda. And Ascend proves to be, let me tell you, it's an empowerment tour. We are no longer going to be settling for mediocrity. And this is what Ascend is all about. Esther has written an awesome book called Ascend. If I'm correct, I think it's for such a purpose as this. It's called Ascend, and it's talking to you about all of the debilitating habits that we allow to keep us on a mediocre level. I spoke earlier about us not being chickens scratching for worms in the dirt. We were never chickens scratching, to be scratching for worms in the dirt. We are eagles, so we are going to ascend and we are going to take off. So Ascend takes off in St. Kitts on June 30th, and then the very next day in Nevis, and the very next weekend, I think it's the 8th of July in Antigua, and the very next day in Barbuda. But follow us on Facebook, guys. If you follow Esther, if you follow myself as well, if you follow Lady Michelle Forbes, you will be able to see when Ascend will be taking off. So with that, I also want to invite, not just invite, but to remind everybody to go to Facebook, the My Story Talk Show. Like, love it, be a part of it. And also on YouTube, subscribe, set your notifications so that when we go live, when the talk show goes live, you're not missing anything at all. So I also want to say thank you again to Lady Michelle L. Forbes, who is the CEO and host of the My Story Talk Show. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to guest host, to be a part of this amazing talk show. Guys, share the live out. Tell everybody, tell it to your enemy and tell it to your friend that the talk show is on. This talk show is going to be featuring people, and everybody has been through something, but this talk show features people who tell their story. And I'm going to say it again, Michelle, your motto, your story is the key that can unlock someone else's prison. So do not miss any more of these shows because somebody will be coming on that holds the key to unlock your prison. With that, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Many blessings to all of you, and we continue to say Happy Mother's Day throughout the month of May as we continue to celebrate all mothers. And Stansel is one mom who has survived the loss of motherhood. That was a very intriguing and very, very different story for a mother. And even those of you who have lost children, for those of you who have not mothered children as yet, I still want to say to you, Happy Mother's Day, because you are indeed a mothering mentor to somebody. Maybe you don't know it, but somebody is watching you and they are emulating you. They are admiring you. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and look out for us next year. I'm saying for us as if it's my show. Michelle, look out for the My Story Talk Show next week, same time at 3 p.m. every single Sunday at 3 p.m. Unless otherwise stipulated, because we understand the time changes, different time zones and time changes as well. But next week, next Sunday, 3 p.m., the My Story Talk Show. With that, have an amazing rest of the day. Have an amazing Sunday and a very productive and blessed week. Thank you.